Hello, guys. This is Jorge with Greystone Investment Group, where you invest and we do the rest. Also, homesforincome.com. That is homes, the number 4, income.com. And today we have Phil Fraligiati. I'm sorry, man. I even wrote it down. Try to get it, but tell us your last name. How do you say your last name again?
Fraligiati.
Fraligiati. Okay, got it. All right, guys, so today we have an awesome segment. Phil is an appraiser. He's been doing it for forever, for 15 years. And we're going to be discussing the different types of appraisals that you can encounter when doing a real estate transaction. So Phil, what is the most common appraisal you do nowadays?
A conventional appraisal.
The conventional
Either
appraisal?
a purchase or refi.
Okay. And what is a conventional appraisal? I guess it's not FHA or VA.
Right. It's called a 1004 in the industry.
So coffee's my actually.
And basically, it's just a standard appraisal where we as appraisers have to find at least three comparable sales. We can always do more, but the minimum is 3. We can add as many as we want. And usually 3 to 5 is sufficient for the lender that is funding the loan.
So I got the first question for you. So you said 3 comps, right?
Right.
Those comps, tell us about those comps a little bit. Do they have to be within 6 months, within a mile? What are the requirements typically for those 3 on the conventional type of appraisal?
Okay, well, as we look at the square footage of the home, and we usually go out on either side plus or minus 10%.
Okay.
So
that means if the property is 1,000 square feet, you could go up to 1,100.
Right.
Or 900.
900 to 1,100.
Gotcha.
So we want to stay within 10%. There are exceptions, but usually, there's so many houses around here in the Tampa Bay area. Usually you can find and stay within the 10% rule. And then as far as a mile, we try to stay within a 1 mile radius of the subject property and within 6 months. Now, some lenders, because the market's been good, have asked us appraisers to stay within 90 days, 3 months.
Okay.
So it's a very compact time, but they want to see recent sales. They want to see a reflection of the recent market.
So if I'm the borrower, how do I know what is the bank is going to require? If it's going to be a 3 month or 6 months, is that something that they tell the borrower, or that's just between you and the bank, pretty much?
Right. Usually we receive an instruction list from the lender. Okay. And then we follow the instructions. We have to meet all the instructions the requirements the lender wants us to meet as the appraiser. So the borrower wouldn't know that.
Gotcha. Wow, interesting. So a lot of times, guys, you're doing a note out there. You're thinking that the bank is utilizing 6 months of appraisals that have been done. Transactions that have happened in the past 6 months, but your lender is only accounting for the last 3 months. So if the market has been going down a little bit, that's going to affect your appraisal, right?
Correct.
And you as the borrower, you don't even know that. You're thinking, right. Is that something you can dispute and say, well, you can say, well, standard appraisal usually should look up to 6 months of sales. Is that something you as the borrower can dispute, or is that in the water pretty much? Is whatever the lender wants? Well,
yeah, the lender really controls the requirements because they're funding the loan.
Well, do you understand what I'm saying? Like most people, like I go to lender A or lender B, lender C. I doubt that the brokers are letting the borrower know that their lender requires activities that don't go beyond sales that don't go beyond 3 months. So that's something important to know. Because if I'm buying a property and I'm telling my agent, do a CMA, and I know that the bank is going to require sales that are within 3 months, then I have to make sure that I tell my agent, hey, make sure that before we waste any time, can you give me a CMA within 3 months? So this is a good question to start asking your lender, your broker. How many months, right? What do you think about that?
Yeah, that is a great question. Because that can make a big difference if I have to look and stay within 90 days or within 6 months. But I hope I haven't misled. Most of the lenders, we can go within 6 months of closed sales. It has to be a closed sale. An active listing or a pending, I can add them in, but that's not what the lender's looking for. They want to see an actual closed sale that's within 6 months.
And that's pretty common sense, that they want to see sold properties. I get that. The one thing that's very interesting is that most of us never ask the lender, is it 3 months or 6 months? And I think that that's very important, because if your lender is only looking at 3 months sold properties versus 6 months, that can make a big difference. That can make the difference between closing the deal or not closing the deal. So great nugget of information. From now on, start asking your lender how many months is of comps of sold properties is the appraiser going to require, or the lender is going to require. So that way you know how to do the CMA from the beginning the right way, and not lose a deposit, not waste time, not lose money on an inspection. Make sure you ask that question to your lender. Okay. So anything else with conventional appraisals that we should know of?
Well, condition, of course, is important. For instance, if the subject property, the property being appraised, has been recently renovated, then I need to find comparables of recent renovations. If I find a house maybe a block away, but it's a fixer type of house, well, I have a house close by, but I can't use it unless I make a big adjustment for condition. And the lenders don't like to see, large adjustments. They like to see, that's why you look for a comparable property. So condition is also important.
So what happens, this happened to us recently. What happens if you take a property down to the studs, right? The property is 1950. But you're taking this property down to the studs where it's just almost the land, and you rebuild this property brand new, meaning walls, floors, bathrooms, kitchens, everything is new. You put $100,000 into a property, right? How do you do the comps? Like, for instance, we were having a challenging time because there was a big discrepancy between a remodel home, a rehabbed home, in a brand new build, But when you started looking at our flip, it looked more like almost like a brand new build, because everything had to be done from scratch. So you as the appraiser, and I'm sure Osvaldo is going to appreciate this because he has a listing right now that has this scenario. How do you appraise a property like that?
Okay. Well, I would look for either new construction sales or a home that's been completely renovated. And then we have what's called a hypothetical condition.
Okay.
So the property would be appraised based on not as is condition, but based on hypothetical condition that all the repairs were done and completed on the property that's all the way down to the studs.
Gotcha.
And the lender would have to know that. There'd have to be communication with the lender, so the lender knows the current condition of the property, but it's being appraised not as is, but in its completed condition.
Gotcha.
And then, as the appraiser, I have to check the box of there's a hypothetical condition that we're assuming all the work has been done and it's all been permitted, has to all be permitted properly, and the permits have to be approved by the code enforcement officer.
Gotcha.
And then if all that was done, then the value would be, whatever the appraised value is compared to new construction and completely renovated other properties.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I want to say hi to a couple of people that have joined us: Dalia, Hector, Jean, Eric, Alma. Thank you for joining us today. And if you guys have any questions, he'll be here. We're going to be here for another 20 minutes, more or less. So, okay, that's very interesting, Phil. So we have a situation like that where the house was rehabbed from the ground up. And when you look at it, it looks like a brand new construction. It's a bungalow. It looks like one of those brand new bungalows that they're building out there. So it's becoming kind of hard to find comps because everything around it is older, and then everything that's brand new is way high. So it's like, how do you make that balance approach and make it happen? And I think you answered that question. I appreciate it. Also, when it comes to comps, a lot of at least realtors struggle with the different types of curb appeals of a property, the different styles of construction. How do you, as an appraiser, make sure that you're comparing apples to apples when you're doing an appraisal? Because sometimes I get wholesalers that send me a property and say, "Oh, here's 3 comps." All of a sudden it's way different. The curb appeal is totally different. They might have the same square footage, but this one is a nice looking bungalow. The other one could be just a square box. How do you differentiate it in that aspect?
It's a good question.
It's a good question.
Well, we do try to find comparable. If a home is a block home, I do try to find other block homes. And if I, let's say, maybe 1 out of 3 comparables is a frame, that information goes in the appraisal report, and I can make an adjustment or not, depending on the condition. It goes back again to the condition of the house.
And depending on the area too, because if it's Seminole Heights or Soho, the frame houses tend to be worth more than the block homes, right? Have you seen that before?
Right. As far as the landscaping and curb appeal,
That's a tough one.
That doesn't make too much difference. Usually what I found is the outside of the house reflects what the inside of the house looks like.
Right.
If the outside looks really nice, usually that's how the inside looks. If the outside looks like it needs work, usually the inside needs work.
Makes a lot of sense. Oh, I was referring more to like different style, like colonial style, or a property that looks like a castle versus a regular block home that you see in Catwood, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
How do you deduct points or add or deduct points to something that looks so odd compared to other houses?
Well, I'm more likely not to use that comp.
But what if that's the subject property? That's a tough one.
That's
right?
a good question. Well, I would really go by square footage and condition and location. Those are always the three main basics.
And
that we
if the
look for.
location is a good fit for the type of
Mm.
property too, I would imagine.
And if the design is that much different, then just have to make an adjustment.
Up or down, depending. Okay, awesome. All right, that's awesome, Phil. Appreciate it. What about, so what's the difference between a regular appraiser and a VA appraisal and an FHA appraisal? Let's start with FHA appraisal. As a seller, as an agent, what should I look out when before putting my property for sale? To make sure that my property gets approved for FHA, VA, and stuff like that.
Okay, that's a good question. FHA, we have to do more specific tests. For instance, we have to make sure the electric is working, the water is on. We have to actually take a picture of the light, of electric.
Okay.
We have to turn the water on, let's say in any sink, and show the water coming out of the sink, out of the faucet. So the water has to be on. We also have to go up into the attic and take a minimum of 2 photographs. And so that we don't have to do any of that on a conventional.
All right, so you gotta get into the attic for FHA versus not. You have to leave the water on, run the water for a little bit.
Right, and then we also have to, for instance, I turn the stove on.
Okay.
And nowadays, of course, a lot of the stoves are flat top, and you'll see the ring turn orange.
Right.
And then I have to take a picture showing the stove is working, the refrigerator. So I have to show the utilities are on, and then I have to show the appliances are in working condition. Now, we don't have to do that.
What happens if a stove is missing a knob or something? Is that something you write off the stove completely, or how does that? Or the fish is missing a handle or loose handle? Is that? How do you deal with that?
Well, if the utility, if it's working, if the appliance is working, that's what they're
looking for.
What the lender's looking for.
But you have to report that to the lender on your appraisal. A knob is out from the stove, or almost kind of like an inspector of a property. Right. For FHA, you become an appraisal and a little bit of an inspector as well. A little bit. Yeah. If it happens, okay. So
but that won't stop the loan from if something minor like a knob is missing.
Okay.
And we're also supposed to look at the foundation to look for foundation cracks.
Okay.
And any type of infestation.
Okay.
And now I always put a note in the report that I'm not licensed as a home inspector, and I'm not licensed as for termites or anything like that.
Just to cover yourself, because you never know, they could be hitting. Those are tough.
Right,
sometimes.
And those are completely different licenses and different fields of expertise. Awesome. And we're not expected to be experts in these fields, but we are supposed to look at the property and make any note of anything we see that could affect the home and therefore affect the loan.
Awesome. So you mentioned a couple of things that differentiate the conventional appraiser versus the FHA so far. Anything else?
No, that's really
pretty much it. So to summarize it, the difference between a conventional appraisal and an FHA appraisal is that first of all, you're gonna look to make sure you do an electric.
Utilities, we have to make sure the utilities are on and working.
The utilities are on and working. Okay, what else?
And then we look at the appliances.
Look at the appliances.
And then we look at the foundation.
Look at the foundation.
We walk around the footprint of the home.
Okay.
And look at the foundation.
In the attic.
And
in 2 pictures of the attic.
We have to take a minimum of 2 photographs in the attic.
Okay.
And while we're looking, we're looking for any sort of infestation too.
Gotcha.
And then we would report that to the lender. And then the lender would have the borrower get a termite inspection.
Termite inspection. Okay.
If we make a note. It's not up to us to
Okay.
go
Awesome.
any further than that, because that's a whole different license and a whole different field.
Awesome. Thank you for the comment, Glenn. Glad you like the information. All right, let's talk about VA now. So we talked about conventional. We talked about FHA. Let's talk about VA.
Well, Jorge, I think you stumped me finally.
Yeah.
And the reason is now I'm certified for FHA.
Okay.
But VA is also a separate certification,
Okay.
and I'm
Okay.
not certified to do VA appraisals.
Okay, that's
so
fine, but
I'm not really
okay.
up to speed on
I
VA.
got it, but
Right.
you know a little bit about it. So what's the difference on the VA?
Well, I do know a VA is a Veterans Administration loan, which is available only to veterans of our armed services.
Okay.
And they have to prove, and I don't remember the form number, but they have to show that they have been honorably discharged from the Army, Navy, Air Force.
Is that something as the appraiser that you have to verify as well?
Well, really,
The lender.
if you're working with a borrower, you should be making sure the lender has that information from your borrower,
Okay.
because the lender needs that information, that certificate, a copy of the certificate
Gotcha.
showing that person has been honorably discharged and
Gotcha.
therefore qualifies for a loan for a veteran.
Gotcha.
And I think that it's similar to an FHA. The utilities have to be working. I'm not sure about going into the attic, but I'm trying to remember from the classes, because I've never done a VA since
Okay.
I never went to get that certification, but I know they want to see utilities are working. I think the appliances, you want to inspect around, the foundation of the home.
Gotcha.
And then the rest of it is the standard appraisal.
Probably very similar to our FHA one.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. This is some great information. All right, let's spice it up a little bit. A lot of people, sometimes we might be intimidated by appraisers. We think that maybe they're not as approachable. I mean, is that a myth or is that true? Do you want to see the homeowner at the property, or you want to be left alone? How do those appraisers feel about having either the agent at the site or the owner of the property?
Well,
What are your thoughts? Does it help? Because I tell a lot of the agents, hey, go meet the appraiser, give that person some comps, so they, not that you're trying to persuade them a specific way, but at least to help them understand some of the upgrades that have been done to the property, some of the comps that are maybe pending to close, that are not showing yet, things like that. Does that help? Just be honest with me, man.
Okay.
How do you feel about that? How do you think most appraisers feel about it?
Well, I think we prefer the house. If a vacant house, it's easiest, because we can go in, we can do our work and leave. I have no problem with a real estate agent or broker meeting me at the house. No problem at all. And if a broker or agent wants to provide information, that's okay. I have to be very unbiased. I'm not biased towards the lender. I'm not biased towards the borrower. I'm like an umpire in a baseball game. I have no favoritism one way or the other. And the lenders are very specific about that, which really came out of the crash from about 10, 12 years ago. They don't want any bias, the appraiser to have any bias. But if the agent knows something about a list of renovations, then I'm open to having a list, because I'll add that, and I've done this before. I've added the list into the report showing the renovations that have taken place on the subject property.
Also, think, guys, if you're an agent or homeowner, make sure you have a list of the stuff you have updated for the appraiser. If you make their job easier, I am sure they'll find a way to help you out with the evaluation. But yeah, I mean, so you think most of your peers feel the same way, like, or you think most of them don't want to see nobody there?
Yeah, in talking with my colleagues, we would rather not have the homeowner there.
Okay.
But we need access to the house, so a lot of times the agent will meet us there at the house and let us in.
So no to the owner, but to the agent, okay?
Yes, and if the owner is there, then the owner is there.
Yeah,
Sometimes what the agent will do, Jorge, is let the homeowner know, I'm coming by with the appraiser. Maybe you could go get a cup of coffee for a half hour, 45 minutes, and come back. And that's worked out well too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. A lot of great information, Phil. The last question is, can you appeal an appraisal? Can you fight an appraiser or appraisal if you feel that it's been done unfairly? What are the tools to do that, in your opinion? What percentage of the time it goes the other way? Is it worth it? If you're talking to a seller right now or a buyer, and they feel that the appraiser didn't do their job well enough, and that there is more than enough comps out there to justify the value, are they stuck, or is there anything they can do, in your opinion, to dispute the value?
Well, remember, by the time the appraisal is done and it's sent to the lender, there's a time lapse. So you, as the borrower, may not find out until the lender comes back to the borrower and says, no, we're not going to do the loan. And then if the appraisal is part of that reason, then the borrower could request another appraiser, have a second appraisal done.
Okay.
And if an agent is involved, in which most transactions involve a realtor, then the realtor could also provide information to the lender to dispute the appraisal and the value. But the borrower's not going to know that right away, because our clients are the lender.
The lender, okay.
So
the lender gets it first, and then the borrower gets it a few days after, when the lender says, no way, we're not going to do this for you.
Right.
What percentage of the time you think appraisals get disputed and won?
Well, I
Does it
think
happen
I've
often,
really
or-
only had a couple of appraisals disputed over all the
Okay.
years. So
It's not happening as
really-
often now than it used to be back in the days. It used to happen back in the days.
Well, yes, and one reason is the market.
It's like
has
a more
been
stable
improving.
market now
Right.
than in the past.
Right. The prices have been rising consistently over the last 5, 6, 7 years now. So there's been good comparables, and the market's been right. It has been steady, and it's not like 12 years ago when the market was going up, 5% a month. I mean, that was crazy. The market was out of balance. But we have a balanced market, so that hasn't really been a problem.
Awesome, awesome. So, guys, to summarize what we've spoke about so far, we went over the differences between a conventional appraiser, VA appraisal, and an FHA appraisal. You guys could replay this video if you want to listen to the differences again. Also talked about, is it worth disputing an appraiser? Does it ever happen? It happens more often than you think. You just have to know, you have to order a new appraiser and dispute it that way. Okay. The last question I'm going to ask you is, how do you see the values in the market in Tampa? Have you seen they're decreasing a little bit, increasing? What have you seen in the past 3 months?
Well,
Pretty stable?
sales are still happening, and the property is moving. I'm not really having any trouble finding recent sales, and the prices are back to where they were really around 2006 and 7. So the market has come way back from its bottom, but property keeps selling. Sales are still strong from what I see.
So pretty much you still see the sales strong. You haven't seen any signals of weakness in the market so far?
I haven't, no.
All right. You heard it from Phil. The market's doing great. So I want to thank you, Phil, for joining us in this video, this awesome video. If you guys have any questions, Phil's going to be answering all the questions on this group. Yes, he's a licensed appraiser. He's part of Grayson 2 as an agent. He's been doing real estate for 15 years. And this is some of the services and tools that we provide our clients, agents, and partners here at Greystone Investment Group. Phil, once again, thank you so much for the information. I think it's been awesome. And stay tuned for more videos. Don't forget to visit us at homes4income.com, Greystone Investment Group, where you invest. We do the rest. Thank you. See ya.